Hey, it's Mazzy. Boy, you're a tough crowd. I'm catapulting myself back right here as in the Maslov World Headquarters quick response team, putting together this video right away just because I already have, 600 views of the best band of the 1980s, 600 views in an hour and a half. So thank you for that. By the time you see this, I don't know how many views there are, but one man's opinion. Of course, it's my opinion. I don't speak for all mankind or womankind or humankind. I speak for myself. And that was a video, the best band of the 1980s. And I showcased the band Smith, 1980s. Now, I got a lot of comments and a lot of people upset, like, I don't even like that band. I can't stand that band. Or, are you kidding me? And of course, one band that came up quite a bit was R.E.M. and then Talking Heads. Okay, now, I could have said that was the best British band of the 1980s, which would be true. Maybe I should have separated and put the best American band of the 1980s as a separate thing. But think about this. There was a purity in that video. The best band of the 1980s, the Smiths, because their first album was in 1984, their final album in 1988. The best band of the 1980s. Now, let's talk about R.E.M. here. I love R.E.M., and they're one of my favorite bands. They could be the best band of the 1980s, except I'm talking about purity. They had albums that spilled into the 90s. In fact, some of their best albums, Automatic for the People, my favorite album in the 1990s. They were into the 2000s. Same with the Talking Heads. Arguably, their best albums were in the 1970s. So, neener, 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 chicken dinner, whatever. Let's make American records great again, as someone famous once said. So, I am not showing the R.E.M. records into the 90s. I'm just going to quickly go through the 80s, and same with Talking Heads. And I'm skipping with the EPs and the comps and things like that. But Murmur, of course, what was great about R.E.M., great band from Athens, Georgia. I love them. I saw them maybe, 4 or 5 times in the 80s alone. And the great thing about, especially their earlier albums with Michael Stipe's vocalizing, you could never understand a word he was saying. And we were always trying to think about it, but it didn't matter really. Of course, lyrically, you could understand his later songs, but Catapult on here. Radio Free Europe. This is a fantastic album. IRS Records, out of Athens, Georgia, produced by Mitch Easter. A fantastic debut, LP debut. Again, there was Gardening at Night, that EP. Prior to this, got into this. Of course, R.E.M. with South Central Rain. This is the album Reckoning. This is a wonderful record. Don't Go Back to Rockville was a special album because I drove across country from San Francisco to New York in '84 when my friend Brooks moved there. And our theme song we kept playing on a cassette was Don't Go Back to Rockville, which was a great song on there. And then, of course, Seven, Chinese Brothers, and Pretty Persuasion, South Central Rain. They're very Birds-like, very much that great Peter Buck, Jingle Jangle, 12-string Rickenbacker guitar. Yes, they are one of the great bands of the 1980s. The best American band, definitely of the 1980s. But they're not pure because they spill over into the 1990s. And of course, then there's Fables of the Reconstruction, another wonderful record. Again, none of these records list the songs right on the front. This is produced by Joe Boyd, and I'm a huge fan of Joe Boyd. He was that American who moved to the UK that produced first of all, the first Pink Floyd single, and then all that great British folk rock and Fairport Convention, incredible string band, Nick Drake. And I think he did a great job on this album. I just love this record. Life's Rich Pageant, R.E.M. This is 1986. Begin the Begin, not the same classic song of the American Songbook. Cayuga, Fall on Me was one of the big singles off this album. Again, another great album produced by Don Gehman. Wonderful wonderful record. I still say the Smiths are the better band of the 1980s, but all these records are great. Okay? Document, another one, another great one album. Finest Work Song is great. Of course, on here, it's The End of the World as we know it. Probably uh, a great song in the vein of the Bob Dylan list songs or Billy Joel that did that song of all the lists and things. That is probably the finest work song as well. But it's The End of the World as Noah. It's one of those classic songs that lists historic events, names, a lot of infamous and famous people. What a really great record. Document by R.E.M. Now, this is not a deep dive into R.E.M. or the Talking Heads. This is just trying to placate you for a little while. Just tamper down the rhetoric here and calm things down here because of my wonderful take on the Smiths in that last video. And of course, the big money, they get signed to Warner Brothers Records and produce Green. Orange Crush, great video, great song. Stand, the dance song. I love that song. It's a great song. Now, some people actually don't like that song. They think it's a little too simplistic and schmaltzy. No, schmaltzy is not the right word. They think it's a little too like precious in a way. You know, stand da 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 dun, dun, dun. But it's you can't deny the great. I love this record cover too. What a great album. Green on Warner Brothers Records, R.E.M. So then they go into the 1990s, which I'm not showing here because we're limiting to the 80s. So they're not a purity 80s band. They basically, how dare them stay together and make great records into the 90s and beyond, right? Of course, Talking Heads, I would argue that their best records in the 1970s, with some exceptions, and I do like their 80s output as well. Of course, 1980 Remain in Light. You know, they really mix their adding musicians, getting in a little more African beat. Of course, that happened in the late 70s first and other albums, which I'm not going to even mention it because that's not the 1980s. And I'm sticking to the 1980s, American bands. The best two American bands of the 1980s. Forget Metallica, forget Van Halen. I mean, they go back in the 70s anyway, or at least did Metallica, did they start in the 80s? I guess. But I know Van Halen was like 78 or something. Once in a Lifetime. This is a wonderful record, and obviously I love the aesthetic, David Byrne and company on this record. A great band, a really tight band, and a fantastic band. And also, like other bands, they were supplemented when they played live here. Of course, one of the great live albums of all time is this Stop Making Sense, the Jonathan Demme directed concert film within a theater setting, specifically shot for the cinema and for the movie. But this is with the book. This is the original copy. What a great sounding record. This is a live record that almost doesn't seem like a live record. Talking Heads, the soundtrack, True Stories. This is a great album. I don't think it's considered like top tier, but I think it's pretty damn great. What's great about this, they get more into that rock band thing again, getting away from the Africana, percussive sounds with wildlife. The video is great with all those different actors that are in the movie. The movie is a little self-indulgent, arty, but it's still kind of a cool record. But I do like this record. I think, again, to me, this is almost harks back to an 80s version of their early stuff. It's, again, just true to a four-piece band for the most part. There might be other supplemental musicians in this, I don't remember. And then their final two albums that don't get a lot of love compared to all that earlier stuff. But I find these albums really good, really solid records. Of course, there's Little Creatures. I mean, a lot of people didn't like the little baby talk of David Byrne, but And She Was a pretty big hit here. Road to Nowhere, again, almost like a country song, but again, their theatrical psychedelic Where from 1985, a wonderful, wonderful record. I think this is top tier, even though people don't consider it top tier. And of course, their final studio record, which I love, and that's Naked. Love the artwork, love the cover. The song's Blind, and Mr. Jones. Mr. Jones is such a killer track on here. And Nothing But Flowers, how it builds up with that percussive intro that seems to go on for about 2 minutes, I think, before they even get into the vocals and songs. Cool Water's a beautiful end bit, but wonderful record. Great band, one of the great American bands, one of the two greatest American bands of the 1980s. One of the two, R.E.M. and Talking Heads. And then this other great double album, Live. Now, I shouldn't even show this side because this is 1977 to 79 Live. So pretend you didn't see that. This is the Live expanded band, 1980-81, which is perfect for one of the greatest bands of the 1980s. These are the two greatest American bands of the 1980s, with an asterisk because their work started in one case with Talking Heads in the 70s and continued through the 90s and beyond. Not for this band, but for R.E.M. Did I confuse you? I knew America should come first when I do it because that's what some people want, America first, all that stuff. You know, let's not look beyond the world. I still consider the Smiths the best band of the 1980s, and they're purely a 1980s band. So thank you for watching this quick response video from the world headquarters of Norman Maslow. Mazzy loves you. Take care.